Hello, everyone who is watching live or who will be watching on YouTube. But we thought it was a really good idea to do a webinar on what happens after you get first semester grades. I think that 1L year especially can, and this is of course like a video for also 2Ls, 3Ls, but especially for 1Ls, it can be a shock after you get your first semester grades. They might not be what you thought they'd be. Maybe you did better than you thought. Maybe you did worse than you thought you would be. And so there's a lot that can be done after you get a semester's worth of grades for the next semester that is about to start or maybe has already started for you. So we're kind of going to take everyone through what can be done after, because I think the biggest thing to remember is that you are not your grades, and your grades do not define you, but what you do after getting those grades doesn't define you either, but it kind of turns you into someone who can navigate law school a little bit better and improve your performance. So that's why the first thing we're going to talk about, and probably the biggest thing, is how do you learn from your first semester experience and performance. So not only how you performed on exams, but how you can self-assess yourself of what your experience was like in the prior semester. We'll also talk about meeting with professors, getting organized, setting goals for yourself for the semester, and talking a little bit more about self-care, especially in these absolutely wild times that we're living in right now, and then answer any questions that anyone has.
Awesome.
So yeah, we're starting with so you get your grades, and I don't know when everyone has gotten their grades. Schools are different. Like at my law school that I work at, grades just came out yesterday at 4 p.m. So
Ooh.
that shock factor is probably still there, or that like uneasy feeling if you feel uneasy about it. But you might have gotten your grades already, maybe a week or two ago. So this is kind of like what to do and what not to do. And so I'm actually going to start with what not to do and try, and it's easier said than done, but try not to focus too heavily on your grades and instead focus on your learning and what you can do differently, what you can get feedback on, and what you can make adjustments with to do better. And you don't want to not change what you're doing if you didn't do that well or as well as you expected, because then the same result is going to happen. So you're going to want to make adjustments and start testing what works better for you, as a study route than maybe what had happened in the prior semester. Also easier said than done, but try to avoid at all costs negative self-talk. Mindset has a lot to do with how you do in law school, but especially after grades come out, you want to say instead, instead of I suck, I did terrible, you want to say something like I need to learn why I didn't do that well, and instead, I need to improve this semester. And then finally, like, you definitely don't want to give up. You got into law school, so you were admitted for a reason. And you definitely, sometimes the first semester is tough because it's your first experience. It's the first time you're doing something and it's a learning experience. So you can learn from your mistakes and do better, and rather than give up.
All right. Thanks, Brittany. Yeah, I just wanted to add something really quickly about the mindset situation, because um, if you can try to look at your grades or whatever circumstance happens as a neutral circumstance, as opposed to like this horrible circumstance, then your thought that follows it, like what Brittany had said, is going to change, right? If you're like, this is like my grades are horrible, and then therefore I'm horrible, and I feel horrible, and I'm going to do horrible, right? As opposed to the thought process, like, okay, my grades came out, and then, as Brittany had just said, the thought that can follow that is, okay, well, I can do better. And the feeling that follows that is, okay, well, I feel motivated to do better, right? Because if you have a thought that says, I can do better, your feeling will be, I'm motivated to feel better. And then your action that results from that feeling will be doing better. So it's amazing, even though we don't have control over our circumstance, in the sense that once the circumstance happens, we can't change it, right? We can't change the actual circumstance once we get our grades. We can, however, 100% control our thought process, which is synonymous to what Brittany was saying, was mindset.
definitely. And so I think that there are steps to take right away. Now, this is just talking about your exams, and it's important to do sooner rather than later. So, and I know that policies at law schools are different from this stuff. Maybe you can't pick up your physical exam. Maybe you can only see it, and maybe you can only review it with your professor. So, just take with what I'm saying with the fact that, you need to obviously follow your law school's policies, but you want to see your final exams, collect them if you can take them or see them. If you have a sample answer, you want to compare it with it, or in the alternative, definitely meet with your professor about your exam. Um, and then after those meetings, you want to write a list of what you did well on that exam. So if your professor points things out to you that you actually did well, you want to make a list of it, and then make a list of what you need to improve on too from that meeting with your professor.
Yeah, and I might even go one step further. And this sounds like something Brittany would actually do, but I'm going to actually say this. You can actually color code, uh, underline or highlight in different colors the aspect of that feedback. Was it analysis? Was it missing a rule? Was it so you can actually be like, okay, well, the green, I'm going to sort of highlight, or I'm going to take notes in a different color. I'll highlight like where I got the rule wrong, where I got the analysis wrong, where I misused the facts, where I forgot to distinguish. So that not just like it's this, you can actually categorize them. So once you write everything down, you can then categorize for yourself what aspect that falls in. This doesn't sound like something you would do, Brittany. It just does.
Yeah, I probably would. Definitely would, actually. And then this slide, I think, and I just wanted to give people things to think about. Like, what types of questions should you be asking when you're meeting with your professors? I know that not everybody feels comfortable meeting with their professors. I think that I'm like one of the most inviting people, I feel anyway. And like, even I make people nervous when I'm talking about exams with them. It's because I think you're looking at something that you produced and it's the person who's critiquing you. So I think there can be a level of unease. But these are the questions you should be thinking about asking your professor about your exam. So, like, did you follow instructions? That's important. Did you actually answer the question? Sometimes you might not. Like, you panic when you take exams and you just kind of start writing. So maybe you didn't actually answer the question. Did you spot all of the issues and sub issues? What issues did you miss? Did you explain all of the relevant rules? Did you use all of the relevant facts? Did you, probably one of the most important questions is, did you apply the rule to the facts and explain why the facts led to that conclusion? Did you apply all of the rule, or did you skip some analysis? Were your conclusions plausible, or were they kind of out of left field and you applied the analysis incorrectly? Definitely ask about organization. Was my exam easy to read? Could you follow it well? Do I need to change something up about how I'm writing or delivering it? And then finally, this last question is selfish of me because I'm a bar professor. So I think it's important to know, but I also think it's important for the student to know, does my exam reflect that I know the law? Can you tell that I knew it and I just didn't apply it correctly, or does it seem like I just didn't even know what was going on? These are all really important questions to ask your professor.
One of the things I just want to add is not, and not that you're going to do this, but this does happen. Do not go in there with a negative sort of point of view either, that somehow, they got, like, there are legitimate times, definitely, that while they're few and far between, that sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes we've missed something that you've done, but it's very, I mean, professors take this grading process very, very seriously. So also being mindful of how you approach your professor and how you talk to them. I've had students say, Professor, I think you were wrong about my exam. You don't want to necessarily lead with something like that, right? Or, I know the law, so what's the, so is it just I just didn't say it right? So you just want to be careful. Um, or I just thought I followed everything that you said. So what's the problem? Because um, while we understand, like, it's good for us to know your point of view in the sense that, okay, I thought I did this, but I see I didn't. Make sure that you don't go in there with an attitude of sort of blame or anything like that. If there is a legitimate, and this is why you're meeting with your professor, if there's a legitimate thing that says, oh, I thought, you said I got the rule wrong, but isn't this the rule? And they're like, oh, okay. Then then sure. But just make sure you're going with a collaborative and open mind when you meet with your professor.
Definitely. I think too, like, just like, what did I do wrong is really not that going to be that productive than
No,
asking these more so specific questions.
right.
And so now, like, it's definitely important to reflect on your exam itself, but probably more important, or even a- at least maybe at the same importance, but I think more important would be to self assess how you got up to that point before taking the exam. Um, And I think it's because a lot of law students make the same mistakes. They wait until the end of the semester to study, or they didn't outline throughout the semester, instead, they waited right until the end, or maybe they didn't condense or outline the material at all. Um, or maybe even what could have happened is you didn't actually have good time management and you didn't even get to study that much. You had to cram the night before. So these are all really important to determining how you also do better next semester, not just the four corners of the exam that you produced. So these are questions you should be asking yourself. So when did you begin to review the material to prepare? Was it right before? Were you doing it throughout the semester? Because you want to lean towards doing it throughout the semester. Were you organized? How was your time management last semester? Um, how did you prepare for exams? What did you do? Did you just study law? Did you do practice questions? Because you're likely going to want to change up what you did. It's good to assess how you felt prior to walking into the exam. You should trust that inclination. Did you feel comfortable? Were you nervous? Were you too comfortable? Were you very anxious where you could barely perform? Because then you want to kind of rein in those feelings a little bit, figure out why you were feeling them and how you can combat them this semester. Um, what was your time management like during the exam? Did you finish? Did you not even come close to finishing? How did you spend your time during the semester? Did you spend a lot of time on briefing cases rather than actually studying? And how can you implement ways to improve this upcoming semester? So, these are a lot of different self assessment questions, but there are a lot of things that are important that you need to reflect on.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add the thing about self-assessment, and you'll hear this throughout, and we're really big on this, is that it also sort of empowers you because it allows you to take control of the situation, as opposed to students at LC who will not go through the self-assessment process tend to either be there's two such a situations. They'll be helpless, like, okay, well, I just can't do it, or the situation where it's external in the sense that the school failed me or the professors failed me or the system failed me. And you want to be careful because of course there are situations where it is tough and might not feel like you're getting support that you want, but remember to not only actively seek it, but it's really important to also look internally as well, because if again we blame external factors or just okay we're helpless, then it's really hard to take control of our situation. And just one story I wanted to share with you, that I was working with a student, and after the fact that they got their grades, the student had said to me, I thought I was going to do a lot higher in your class, and if I had just done, point something percent higher, I would have been able to keep my scholarship. And I left that conversation feeling horrible, feeling terrible, feeling like, oh my God. And it was a very much like, you did this to me. And I just thought, oh my God, am I the reason that this person has lost their scholarship? And the answer to that is no, right? It's no. And I had to really think about that for a while, because you want to just be careful. What you want to instead say, you know what, if I had just done a little bit better, I would have been able to keep your scholarship. Because I just want you to know that your professors don't want to prevent you from succeeding, which is why I felt so terrible after that. And I said, oh my God, this person was 0.01 away. But I also knew that it wasn't on me for this student to keep their scholarship. But just please know that we want you to succeed, and we do feel terrible when you don't. But the responsibility is ultimately going to be on you. Isn't that
Definitely.
isn't that so sad, Brittany?
It was intense. It was intense. I don't have those conversations too much with students, but now I probably will that I said that. Mm,
We do. We have hearts. We feel really bad sometimes. We're just like, okay.
definitely. And so so now don't feel scared to meet with your professors. You want to meet with them more. One thing I think that is actually not a fault of students, but I actually think is a lot, and I understand this is getting published on YouTube, but I think that's a fault of a lot of law schools and educational institutions is the method of not giving students enough feedback before the final exam.
It's big.
So when I was in law school, I think there are more formative assessments now than when I was in law school because there's some kind of shift in pedagogy,
Yes.
albeit not great. It's happening. But when I was in law school, I barely had any formative assessment before my exam. I remember I had a real property midterm that was like fake and like not fake, but it wasn't real. And he gave everybody really low scores on purpose. And then I had maybe like one problem in another class. But so what you have to do is kind of then combat the system that you're stuck in and look for feedback. Write practice questions and go into your professor's office during office hours or in a meeting and say, hey, how did I do on this? Make sure you understand rules. Try to get feedback and as much feedback as you can prior to sitting for your exam. And when I say meet with your professors, I don't only mean your professors who are teaching those classes. Reach out to your academic support professors at your law school. Meet with them after you do a practice question and review it. As much feedback as you can get before the exam, you should.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I think that's a big thing. And remember, you have to be proactive. There's a lot of proactiveness in law school, right? And that does not mean that, you have to feel like you're, constantly like having to be. I know some people are shy or they're more introverts or things like that, but has nothing to do with being proactive, right? That is the one thing you have to do because they will not come to you, right? And give you feedback or always offer you the opportunities for feedback. So you're going to want to go to your professors. Also, if for some reason your professor has limited office hours or anything like that, make sure, and a lot of students don't know this, you explore your academic support resources. Are there other academic support professors, TAs, some people call them dean's fellows, anything like that, upper class students who have done well, who can help you in times where you cannot meet with your professor. Because remember, there's always more than one source. And a lot of law schools now, I would say a majority of them, have a academic support system built in where there are people dedicated to that system and have upperclassmen and other upper class women there to help and have like learning academic centers and things like that. So just remember to make sure you explore that too.
Definitely. The sun is here now, so
I know, and the sun is here too. We're on opposite coasts here, but
I all of a sudden look very
all
bright.
the sun. Yeah, I know. I put the sun in my face.
So another big tip I think is to get organized and before the semester starts, or at least right in the beginning of the semester, make a plan of attack. What days are you going to devote for reading, briefing, outlining? Give yourself outlining deadlines. What are your deadlines for class? Throw that in a calendar. Are there any deadlines of things that you're interested in, like maybe applying for moot court, law review? What are those deadlines? What are some really cool events that, or probably virtual, but what are some cool events that your law school is holding that you would really like to be a part of? When are you going to take breaks? Build those into your schedule. Any networking that you want to be doing, anything, honestly, plan out your entire lives is essentially what I'm saying, and be pretty explicit about it. You could make an Excel spreadsheet calendar. You could buy one of these, which is a cute like little planner, and plan your entire life like I do. And you really want to be able to do that and be more organized this semester. Even if you were pretty organized last semester, try to plan more and plan everything that you can this semester.
Yeah, and by now, by the way, it's harder during our first semester of our first year, uh, prior to starting, because we don't know how long things are going to take us. By now, you'll know, okay, I have to spend 2 hours per 1 hour of class previewing. I have to spend 1 hour per 1 hour class reviewing, things like that. And you're going to want to block that time out ahead of time. Not, you want to put your deadlines in first and everything, but then you want to try to block out your time. Like, okay, I have 3 classes and I'm going to have to block out preview time, outlining time, practice time, review time. And just as a note, we're kind of hope open, holding up our planners and stuff, but Brittany is extremely organized and planned, and I like to try to rebel against that a lot of times. But the thing is it works. Like when I do get, and Brittany often has to tell me, did you plan your day? Did you plan your week? Because it actually works. Like when I do that, again, the day doesn't take control of me, or the week doesn't take control of me. I take control of my day, and I take control of my week and my semester, and so on and so forth. So that's actually why. If you're one of those people like, I'm not going to write down everything and plan my entire life, remember, it doesn't mean, I mean, you're in control of your life. So it doesn't mean that you can't move things around or have a day where you're like, you know what, I just need to relax. We all have those, right? It doesn't mean that you have to 1000%. It just means you cannot let the day and the week and the semester take over control over you. You want to take control over it.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think what I would also say is that getting organized is really important, especially when things go off track, because like life happens. My past week, for example, I had everything planned in this book, and actually almost none of it was able to get done because
Yeah.
something urgent came up. It's pretty urgent, right? And so
Yeah.
um something urgent that needed to get prioritized apparently before anything that I had. And that's going to happen. Or maybe you just have a hard time focusing one week. I mean, there's a lot happening. We're in a pandemic. There's so much happening with our country. The Capitol was just stormed on the 6th. And sometimes, we can recognize that we're human and something might not go to plan. But at least then I could look at my week, for example, and say, okay, I've got to now put all of this on the following week. But I can now still plan to get back on track. But it would have been a disaster if I didn't have that all planned, and now I had to scramble and figure out what I had to do. And prioritizing your tasks too helps with that. So you always want to really do it, even if you think, well, that's not realistic, having everything planned ahead of time. I'm though definitely the one to tell you that it's not. um, but you can at least reschedule things and reorganize and prioritize things when something's at least pre-planned.
Yeah, it's funny. Brittany and I both had weeks this past week for completely different reasons where emergencies sort of took us, kind of derailed us a little bit. But the thing is that then what I could actually do is take the 3 hours that I may have blocked for something else that wasn't as urgent and move it to something else. It's interesting. And I had to deal with the external property issue that was urgent. And I thought, okay, between this time and at least I could take chunks of that calendar and say, well, I wanted to do this during these 3 hours or 2 hours, but this is going to have to move till Sunday or move to Saturday or something to that effect.
Yeah, definitely. So we understand stuff comes up, but at least getting yourself in an okay place can help you rework the timing. And then these are just some tips to how to just generally how to improve this semester. Um, I think that you've read a lot of cases in your first semester for sure, but try to pay a little bit more closer attention to them and how things are written. The case law is filled with how lawyers are thinking and how law is analyzed. So that can really help you when you're figuring out exam writing, right? You can analyze issues and structure your analysis writing and the structure of your writing like a case. So start to think about cases not only just as things you have to read, but kind of writing you can mimic. And so pay close attention to that. Also, make sure that you spend more time really understanding the rules of law. So a real good deep understanding of the rules, because there's a good chance that you might have not had that understanding last semester. Study and outline throughout the semester. Don't wait until the end. Really, really try to make that a goal for this semester. Do more practice problems this semester. Build them into your schedule. Really, really add that to your goals. Ask more questions. Seek help when you need it. Ask academic success professors. Ask your faculty. Ask anybody, honestly, if you need help. And we already talked about this, but make detailed schedules and plan your time accordingly. So that way you can set yourself up for success this semester.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
So it's also, I think, I'm a big advocate of setting goals for yourself. And so, like, for example, I have so many things. This is my goal, whatever these things are called. I already forgot. But these are my goal sheets. And every day I write down my goals and I write down my goals for each week. Tanya, what are these things called? What are these things? I forgot.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
The little
Clipboard.
thingies. Oh yeah, yeah, the clipboard.
Clipboard. So I have a clipboard and I hang it over here. And
Clipboard too.
it has
It's
my goals.
empty. It's just empty.
Oh, I've got my goals for the week here and then daily goals here, and there are multiple sheets for those. But you want to make sure that they're very specific. Like the goal shouldn't be,
Yes.
I'm going to get an A in contracts too, right? And instead, it should be like, I am going to outline earlier in the semester. I am going to improve my analysis writing. There are also goals that should be measurable. So you should be able to execute those and work towards those goals and see how you're doing on them. So you should be able to write practice questions in the semester, see if it's working. They should be achievable, meaning that you shouldn't try to set high expectations for yourself. And I am the number one person who makes a to-do list for a day that is impossible to complete in a day, and then I feel awful afterwards. So do as I say and not as I do, but make sure you're only giving yourself achievable goals that are realistic, that are relevant to what you're trying to accomplish, and make sure you know how long each of these goals are going to take, right? So make sure that you're realistic with your time management, that you can complete these goals, not only while you're executing them and working towards them, but that you've got a set date you'd like to complete the goal by. That's really important.
Yeah. It's great. Smart. Good acronym.
Smart, yes, because that's
Yes.
what we all are.
There are different you can do it on a clipboard so it's actually in front of you, which is actually very smart, I think. My clipboard is empty. You can have planners that do it. One type of planner, and I'm not a salesperson for this planner, but it's called the Panda Planner. And what it does is it has like, and I'll just give an example, it has like the schedule here, but then it has today's priorities, and some other things, and then for daily. But then you can also do your weekly, like what do I want to get done between January 1st and January 8th, and there's like weekly types of things as well. And so there are planners out there, or like what Brittany said, to have it on a clipboard in front of you is really good actually, and that's probably a better idea because sometimes I just close my planner and ignore it. But when there's something in front of you, it's hard to ignore.
Definitely. So Tanya, what a perfect topic for you.
What are you talking about?
It's something that we all need to do better. Definitely number one. I think I barely slept this week. Like, I need to sleep this weekend a lot to make up. You can never make up for sleep, but I need to try to do some of it anyway. And so I think that one of the things that's really important this semester that you likely may not have done enough of the prior semester is self-care and taking care of yourself, finding ways to manage the stress, taking breaks, doing things you enjoy to break up the monotony and stress of the semester. And try to give yourself more social interaction. We're in really hard times. The pandemic, although it's been going on for a while, it's probably ramping up I mean, where I am in the East Coast, it's more egregious and serious than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Um, the spread is higher than ever. So try to engage in virtual study groups and in these socialization ways that you can virtually, so that way you're not so isolated.
Yeah, I do want to make a comment on that because the spread is more egregious and it's more egregious everywhere. On the East Coast, I know it's just ramping up and getting worse. The East Coast tends to take care of themselves a little bit better than the rest of the country. For example, in California, it's beyond egregious. And I just want to say two things about that. Number one, there are people who say, I am just tired of staying at home. I'm just tired of being this. And we completely get it. We know that you are tired of staying at home and not being able to interact with people. And so for some people, it's an introvert's dream. But even introverts that I've talked to are tired of not being able to staying at home. But I just want to say how important it is right now in our country and in our world, because not only do we have more egregious rates, we have new strains that are coming out, because what viruses do is they try to outsmart their host. And so what we need to do is we need to then outsmart this virus. And that by that is coming up with innovative ways of making sure that we are safe, but still we are still safe in our minds, right? So let's figure out how we can stay safe, and not go out there and harm ourselves and harm our loved ones, but come up with these innovative ways to sort of break up that monotony of being home.
Definitely. And I think that I talked to so many students at the end of last semester who were probably the most burned out they've ever felt. When classes are online and in
Yeah.
person, there's so much stress. And then online classes can be really stressful because they take longer than a normal class would. It takes a lot longer to watch a video. It doesn't actually take an hour and 15 minutes, it takes like 2 hours. And so you want to make self care a priority because you're not going to do as well as you want to this semester if you're not your best self. And so, in order to be your best self, you have to really prioritize yourself, which is my goal for 2021, by the way. That's my only goal. Only goal. And like, I'm not doing well so far at
Well, you have had some major emergency systems that have come up,
work stuff. Yeah,
work
stuff
stuff.
happens. But
Um,
I have read 9 novels so far in 2021.
Well, see, and okay, and let me just talk about this for a second. If you don't know about things to do for your own self care, ask people around you. Brittany has also now, Brittany can read 3 times as fast as me, so I've only read 3 novels in 2021. But it is Brittany who is the one who is now referring books to me that she thinks I'll like. And it's like, been life changing, because instead of like just being in the monotony, I'm actually excited now. Like sometimes I can't go to sleep or whatever, and I'm like, I'm gonna read this book. Of course, sometimes I get a little obsessed and it goes there, but it's actually really great because if you ask other people around, hey, what's good? Like, what I like. What do you think I would like? And it's really great because I just didn't know kind of where to look. And then Brittany is now my own little Barnes and Nobles, Amazon.com.
If you ever not only need anything related to law school and have a question, you can always reach out to me. But if you are looking for book recommendations, you
Oh
can
my
reach out.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And so finally, I think it's really good to end with this message in terms of please, and it's so much easier said than done, but please know that your grades are not you. You are not your grades. And how you respond is what matters. What you got in the long, grand scheme of things doesn't matter. You've got 5 more semesters left. And so much can be done in those semesters that um, what happened first semester is pretty insignificant, and it can be even more insignificant in terms of how you respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And um, we have the question and answer. You can use the question and answer field right here if you have any questions. Um, or you can always feel free to reach out to us. You can always go to info at lawtutors.net, info@lawtutors.net. If any questions come up and you just were like, I'm not sure, I saw your webinar and I have a question, you can check us out there. And you can also go to our site to watch this webinar, or you can go to YouTube to watch this webinar. And we'll be having more webinars like this actually throughout the semester. We have 2 more webinars coming up, and they are at a time that I will just tell you in 1 second, because I know I have it. All right. We have, so on February 27th, at the same time at 12 East Coast, we have a webinar, which is probably going to concentrate on, outlining and condensing and making sure that you have getting all the information together. And then on April 10th, also at noon East Coast time, we have a webinar that's going to concentrate a lot on exam taking. And exam taking and things like that. So it's sort of a progression. And so it's a series that we like to put on. So, if you watch this one, it'll then naturally lead into the next one in February, and then naturally lead into the next one in March.
Yeah. As you were talking, I just put those dates in my I'm executing the advice.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone.